Hello, Year 4, and welcome to our home learning. It is day 11. It's Monday, the 25th of January 2021. I hope you've all had a good weekend and you're ready to get back to some work. Remember, you have to have a try of every piece of work, okay? So, let's get started. Okay, early morning work. I'll go through them and then you need to pause the video. Okay? So, number one, use the array to solve the calculation. So, what you need to do is how many rows and how many along. Okay? So, how many rows first and how many going along that row. And that's your calculation, then you need to work it out. Number two, you need to use these symbols to complete the sentence. So you need to work out the answer to 4 multiplied by 5 and 2 multiplied by 10 and decide whether it's the two less than and larger than or greater than or equals to complete the sentence. 8 times 5 and 6 times 8. What is different about the two calculations? You just work out the answer and what's different. Number 4. Caleb goes to breakfast club each school morning for 5 weeks. So how many days do you go to school? And that's multiplied by 5 because it's 5 weeks. So how many times in total does Caleb attend breakfast club? And then number 5, Alfie is calculating. 5 multiplied by 6 is greater than 3 multiplied by 10. Do you agree with Alfie and explain your reasoning? What I would do is work out the first calculation, 5 multiplied by 6, and then do the next 3 multiplied by 10 and see what you see. Okay, so pause the video now and have a good go. Okay then, so let's go through the answers. Number 1, use the array to solve the calculation. So there are 2 rows and there are 6 along. So it's 2 times 6 or 2 multiplied by 6 and the answer is 12. So number 2, you have to use the less than, greater than or equals to complete the sentence. Well, I know that 4 multiplied by 5, 4 5s are 20, and 2 times 10 is 20, so I would use the equals sign. What is number 3? What is different about the two calculations? 8 5s are 40 and 6 8s are 48, so the totals are different and there is a difference of 8. Number 4. Caleb goes to breakfast club each school morning for 5 weeks, so he goes 5 times per week. So over 5 weeks, the calculation would be 5 times 5, and the answer is 25. Number 5. 5 multiplied by 6 is greater than 3 multiplied by 10. Is he correct? 5 multiplied by 6 is 30. And 3 multiplied by 10 is 30, so it's incorrect because it's the same. Okay, so now we're going to do some English. So you need your reading booklet of chapter 3. So pause the video while you get that for me. Okay, so let's see what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to read chapter 3 together. So let's see if you can have a look at the title of that chapter. It's Heroes or Exiles. So what is an exile? So before we read, what we need to do is you need to look up using a dictionary or using Google some of the words on the next page. You need then to write the meanings down and then write them in a sentence. Okay? So, the words I have are exile, gorge, swooped, primeval, halt, racket, assert, modestly, and fortification. So what I would like you to do now is I would like you to pause the video and quickly write those words down. Okay, so you've written those words down. What I would like you to do on the next page, I've shown you how I would like you to work it out. I would like you to present it. So my example is exile. So the meaning is to be forced to live somewhere other than your country or your home. Okay, someone who's been sent somewhere to live somewhere else. They're not allowed back in their country or in their home. So my sentence with the word exile in, the group of men who were found in the cellar of the old house were exiles from America as they had committed some horrendous crimes. So you need to do all of those sheets, okay, all of those words, sorry, and you need to write them exactly how I've done it. Okay? So, can you pause the video now whilst you do that? Okay, whilst were reading, I want you to think about at the end of the reading what has happened in the chapter and what do you think will happen with Hiccup and his dragon. So let's get reading, shall we? Heroes or Exiles, Chapter 3. The boys scrambled over the slimy pebbles at the edge of the beach and back up Madman's Gully, the gorge they had climbed through a couple of hours before. This was a narrow crack in the cliffs filled with large rocks. They tried to move as quickly as they could, but this is difficult when you are slipping and sliding over huge stones covered in ice, and they made painfully slow progress. A dragon that hadn't been put off by the snow came shrieking down into the gorge. He landed on Warthog's back and started savaging him, sinking his fangs into Warthog's shoulder and ripping red lines into his arms. Gobber bashed the dragon on the nose with his handle of his axe, and the dragon let go and flapped away. But a whole wave of dragons replaced him, pouring into the canyon with awful rasping cries, fire shooting from their nostrils and melting the snow before them. Talons spread wickedly as they swooped downward. Gobber stood, legs wide apart, and whirled his big double-headed axe. He threw back his great hairy head and yelled a terrible primeval yell that echoed down the sides of the gorge and made the hairs on the back of Hiccup's neck stick straight up like the spines on a sea urchin. Individually, dragons tend to have a healthy sense of self-preservation. That means they don't want to die. But they are braver when they hunt in packs. They knew now that they had the advantage of massive numbers, so they didn't check their flying for an instant. They just kept on coming. Gobber let go of the axe. Spinning end to end, the axe soared up through the softly falling snow. It hit the biggest dragon of the lot, killing him instantly, and then carried on going. landing in a snowdrift hundreds of feet away and disappearing. This made the rest of the dragons think a bit. Some of them scrambled over each other in their haste to fly away, yelping like dogs. The others came to a halt, hovering uncertainly, screaming defiance, but keeping their distance. Waste of a good axe, grunted Gubba. Keep going, boys. They could come back. Hiccup needed no encouragement to keep going. As soon as he got out of the gorge and onto the marshy land behind it, he broke into a stumbling run, every now and then falling flat on his face in the snow. Some time later, when Gubba reckoned they were a safe distance from Wild Dragon Cliff, he yelled at the boys to stop. Very carefully he counted heads again to check he hadn't lost anybody. Gubba had spent an unpleasant 10 minutes standing at the mouth of the dragon's cave, wondering why there was such a terrible racket, and what he was going to say to Stoic the Vast if he lost his precious son and heir for good. Something tactful and sensitive, he supposed, but tact and sensitivity were not Gubba's strong points, and he took the first 5 minutes to come up with, Hiccup copped it, sorry, and then spent the second 5 minutes tearing his beard out. Consequently, although secretly mightily relieved, he was not in a good mood, and as soon as he could get his breath back, he exploded all over the place as the boys stood, shivering violently in a bedraggled line. What do you think a bedraggled line might be? Sometimes when we're lined up for dinner, your line is bedraggled. It's all over the place. Not straight. Never in 14 years have I come across such a load of hopeless barnacles as you lot. Which of you useless mollusks was responsible for waking up the dragons? I was, said Hiccup, which wasn't strictly true. Oh, that's brilliant, bellowed Gubba. Just brilliant. Our future leader shows off his magnificent leadership skills at the tender age of 10.5. He does his best to annihilate himself and the rest of you in a simple military exercise. Snotlout sniggered. You found something amusing about that, Snotlout? Asked Gubba with dangerous softness. Everybody is on limpet rations for the next 3 weeks. The boys groaned. Smart work, Hiccup, sneered Snotlout. I can't wait to see you in action on that battlefield. Silence, yelled Gubba. This is your initiation, not a day out in the country. Silence, or you'll be lunching on lugworms for the rest of your lives. Now, continued Gubba more calmly, although that was an absolute mess, it wasn't a total disaster. I presume that you do all have a dragon after that fiasco? Yes, chorused the boys. Fishleg took a sideways glance at Hiccup, who was staring straight ahead. Lucky for you, said Gubba ominously. So you have all passed the first part of the dragon test. There are, however, still 2 parts that you have to complete before you can become full members of the tribe. Your next task will be to train this dragon yourself. This will be a test of the force of your personality. You will assert your will over this wild creature and show it who is master. Your dragon will be expected to obey simple commands such as go and stay, and hunt fish for you in the way that dragons have hunted for the sons of Thor since anybody can remember. If you were worried about the training process, you should study a book called How to Train Your Dragon by Professor Yobbish, which you will find in the fireplace of the great hall. Suddenly Gobber looked very pleased with himself. I stole that book from the Meathead Public Library myself, he said modestly, regarding his very black fingernails, from right under the nose of the hairy, scary librarian. He never noticed a thing. Now that's burglary for you. Warthog put up his hand. What happens if we can't read, sir? No boasting, Warthog, boomed Gobber. Get some idiot to read it for you. Your dragons will begin to go back to sleep because this is still their hibernation time. Some of the dragons had indeed gone very quiet inside the baskets. So take them home and put them in a warm place. They should wake up in the next couple of weeks. You will then only have 4 months to prepare for Initiation Day at the Thursday celebrations. And the final part of your test, if on that day you can prove that you have trained your dragon to the satisfaction of myself and other elders of the tribe, you can finally call yourself a hooligan of Berk. The boys stood very tall and tried to look like proper hooligans. Heroes or exile, yelled Gobber the Belch. Heroes or exile, yelled 8 boys fanatically back at him. Exile, thought Hiccup and Fishlegs sadly. I hate being a Viking, panted Fishlegs to Hiccup as they stumbled back through the bracken to the hooligan village. You don't really walk on the island of Berk. You waded through heather or bracken or mud or snow that clung onto your legs and made them difficult to lift. Bracken and heather is type of bushes that you might have on like wild fields and in the countryside. It was the sort of country where the sea and the land were always falling into one another and getting mixed up. The island was shot through the holes burrowed by the water, a maze of crisscrossing underground screens. You could put your foot on a solid-looking piece of grass and find yourself disappearing up to your thigh in black, sticky mud. You could be making your way through the ferns and suddenly find yourself fording a river waist high and icy cold. The boys were already soaked to the skin with seawater, and now the snow had turned to horizontal driving rain, blowing in their faces with the strength of one of the gale force winds that were always shrieking across the salty wastelands of Berk. A narrow escape from horrible death first thing on Thursday morning, complained Fishlegs, followed by complete rejection by the junior half of the tribe. Nobody's going to talk to me for years after this, except for you, of course, Hiccup. But then you're just a weirdo like me. Thank you, said Hiccup. And on top of everything, continued Fishlegs bitterly, a 2-mile run carrying a deranged dragon on my back. The basket on Fishlegs' back was plunging wildly from side to side as the dragon inside tried manically to get out, and only a dinner of horrible limpets to look forward to at the end of it. Hiccup agreed that it wasn't a delicious prospect. You can have this dragon back if you like, Hiccup. I warn you, they're filthy heavy when you're wet and cross, said Fishlegs miserably. Gobbert is going to go off like a typhoon when he finds out you haven't got a dragon. But I have got one, said Hiccup. Fishlegs stopped and began to take the basket off his back. I know it is yours, really, he sighed wearily. I think I'll just go straight past the village and keep on running till I reach somewhere civilized. Rome, perhaps. I've always wanted to go to Rome, and I haven't got a hope in Valhalla of passing initiation anyway, so no, I've got another one in my basket, Hiccup insisted. Fishlegs' jaw dropped open in disbelief. I got it when I went back into the tunnel, explained Hiccup. Well, blister my barnacles, said Fishlegs. How in Thor's name did you know it was there? It was so dark you couldn't see the horns in front of you. It was weird, said Hiccup. I sort of sensed it when we were running down the tunnel. I couldn't see anything, but as we were passing, I just knew there was a dragon there and that it was meant to be my dragon. I was going to ignore it, actually, because we were in a bit of a hurry. But then you said about not having a dragon, and I went back, and there it was, lying on the shelf in the tunnel, just as I'd imagined it would be. Well, jigger my jellyfish, said Fishlegs, and the boys started running again. Hiccup was bruised all over, shaking from shock, and he had a nasty dragon wound in his calf, which was stinging like crazy from the salt water. He was freezing cold, and there was an irritating bit of seaweed in one of his sandals. He was also a bit worried because he knew he should not have risked his life trying to get a dragon for Fishlegs. This was not the act of a Viking hero. A Viking hero would know not to intervene between Fishlegs and his fate. On the other hand, Hiccup had been worrying about dragon catching day for longer than he could remember. He had been sure he would be the only one to come back without a dragon, and shame, embarrassment, and awful exile would follow. And now here he was, a Viking warrior with a dragon. So on the whole, he was feeling fairly pleased with himself. Things were looking up. Now, what I want you to do is read the next. There's only about 2 pages left to the end of chapter 3. Okay? And I want to see if you can read those yourself or read with if someone's there with you. Okay? Once you get to the end of chapter 3, stop. And then think about what has happened in the chapter and what do you think will happen with Hiccup and his dragon. Okay, so pause the video now whilst you finished reading. Okay then, so we're back now for our maths lesson. Okay, and we're going to carry on with fractions. As you can see, the fractions on there's some really good pictorials to show you the different fractions. Okay, so you can use that to help you. What we're going to be learning to do today is we're going to be learning to count in the fractions, the parts, and we're going to look at fractions that are greater than 1. Okay, so if you have a look at the sheet here, how many halves make a whole one? Yep, 2. And that you can see the denominator is 2. How many thirds make up a whole one? 3. So 3 thirds is equivalent to 1 whole. How many quarters are equivalent to 1 whole? How many fifths? What do you notice? If the numerator, the top number, is the same as the denominator, the bottom number, then it is 1 whole. Okay, so keep that in mind for the next part. Let's see what we're doing today. So we're going to be looking at fractions greater than 1 whole. So what I would like you to do is we have a part whole model here. Okay, and so in the top circle, you have got how many fifths? So you need to count how many are shaded. Yeah, there's 7 fifths all together. So we're going to break that down. So 7 fifths is equal to 5/5 and then 2/5. So then I would say 7/5 equals, and what do you notice about 5/5? It's one whole one. So it's one whole and how many fifths? 2. Let's go through that together. You've got 7/5 in total. So if you use that bar model, the bars, you can see you have one whole one, which is 5/5, and then you have 2 more fifths. So 7/5 is the same as one whole one and 2/5. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay then, let's have a look. If you have a look at B, how many equal parts is in one bar? Yeah, there's fifths. So how many fifths have you got? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I know there's 5 in the next one because it's a whole one. So that's 10, 11, 12, 13. There are 13 fifths altogether. How many fifths have you? The second line of that, the sentences, how many fifths have you got altogether? You've got 10. You've got 5 and 5, and that is equivalent to, that is the same as 2 whole ones. And how many fifths in the other circle? 3. Let's do this again so you can understand. Okay, how many fifths have you got all together? You've got 5, 10, 13 fifths. So 13 fifths can be divided into how many whole ones? 2 whole ones. Okay, which is how many fifths? Yeah, 10. So 10 fifths equals 2 wholes, and you, in the other part of the circle, you have 3 fifths. So 13 fifths equals 2 and 3 fifths. Okay, let's have a look at C, shall we? Okay then, I know that the bars are divided into 4, so each part is 1/4. Okay, so how many quarters are there all together? I know there's 4, 8, 12, 13. So there are 13 quarters all together. So 13 quarters is the same as how many quarters? 4, 8, 12. And so that's how many whole ones? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it'll be 3 wholes and 1/4. Let's do that one again, just in case. So you have 13 quarters, and that is equivalent to 3 whole ones and 1/4. Okay, so there are 13 quarters, and you have 12 quarters, which equal 3 whole ones and 1/4 by itself. Okay, I would like you to draw in your book those 2 strips divided into 3. Pause the video whilst you do that for me. Okay, so you have shaded in, okay, 5/3. So I would shade in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5/3 equals how many whole ones? One whole one. And how many thirds? 1, 2. So 1 whole add 2/3 equals, and how? So it's 1 and 2/3. Let's go through this again. I've shaded in 5 of those blocks. Okay, so I've shaded in 5. That equals 1 whole one and 2/3, and that equals 1 and 2/3. Let's have a look. Can you pause the video and draw me the 3 strips now, please? Excellent. So you've done that. Now I want you to shade in 8. So if I was to shade in 8, I would shade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8/3 is how many whole ones? I know it's 2 wholes. And how many thirds? 2/3. So altogether it's 2 and 2/3. Now see if you can do that one yourselves. So you need to draw it and divide your strips into 8/5. Shade 8 parts in. How many whole ones do you have? How many fifths do you have? And then put them together into a mixed number fraction. Pause the video now whilst you're doing it, please. Okay, so if I was to shade in 8, I would shade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I would have 1 whole one shaded, and I would shade 3/5. So it'd be 1 and 3/5. Okay then, to complete the statements, you may need to draw these, okay? So I would draw some bars divided into 2. I know it would be divided into 2 because the bottom number of your fraction, the denominator, tells you how many you need to divide your bar into. Then you need to colour in 12, and you need to see how many whole ones you have. And then when you get to G and H, you have got extra. So you've got whole ones and you've got some left. Have a go at those. Pause the video and then have a go. Okay, number 5. To do this one, using the less than, greater than, or equals, you will need to draw each of those bars. Okay, so you've got 2 wholes and 3/4. So what would you divide your bar into? You need to divide it into quarters. So how many parts is that? 4. So I would draw 2 whole ones, each one divided into 4, and then another whole bar divided into 4 and shade in 3. And see if you then can say whether is it greater than, is it less than, or is it equals to 5/4. And do the same for the others, please. Have a go. They are tricky, but have a go. Okay then. Once you've done that, you then need to complete the part whole models. So 4 and 3/5 is the equivalent to, It's got 4 whole ones, and how many are left? Okay. I would then change 4 3/5 into a top heavy fraction. So 4 whole ones, how many fifths in 4 whole ones? If there's 5 in 1, 10 in 2, 15 in 3, how many in 4 whole ones? And then you've got another 3. How many fifths have you got left? And the same for the other one in B. Right, you need to get your pack out of your worksheet, and basically it's very, very similar. You need to see if you can complete that. Okay, now you need to pause the video while you do that. Have a try. Okay, so our reading workshop today is going to be starting something new, and it is called The Firework Maker's Daughter, and it's written by Philip Pullman. Now I'm going to start off reading, okay, and you can then think about finishing it off yourself, okay. And there are some questions. Well, it's just reading it today because it is a very long chapter. But before we read, okay, I want you to have a look. What can you see on the front cover? What do you think the story may be about? What is a firework, and where do you think the story might be set? Just by looking at that very front cover. Okay? So, as I read the text, and I hope I've got it right, okay, because I've found it online, I would like you to follow and then you to complete reading the first chapter. And then tomorrow you're going to be looking at a couple of questions from our Reading Vipers, okay, which we have done all year, so you should know how to answer the questions. You're doing exceptionally well with the reading, and I thought I would let you off with doing the Lady of Shalott. Okay, so are you ready? Get your Philip Pullman, The Firework Maker's Daughter, and let's start reading. Chapter 1. 1,000 miles ago, in a country east of the jungle and south of the mountains, there lived a firework maker called Lochlann and his daughter Lila. Lochlann's wife had died when Lila was young. The child was a cross little thing, always crying and refusing her food, but Lochlann built a cradle for her in the corner of the workshop where she could see the sparks play and listen to the fizz and crackle of the gunpowder. Once she was out of her cradle, she toddled around the workshop laughing as the fire flared and the sparks danced. Many times she burnt her little fingers, but Lochlann splashed water on them and kissed her better, and soon she was playing again. When she was old enough to learn, her father began to teach her the art of making fireworks. She began with little crackle dragons, 6 on a string. Then she learned how to make leaping monkeys, golden sneezes, and Java lights. Soon she was making all the simple fireworks and thinking about more complicated ones. One day she said, "Father, if I put some flowers of salt in a Java light instead of cloud powder, what would happen?" "Try it and see," he said. So she did. Instead of burning with a steady green glimmer, it sprayed out wicked little sparks, each of which turned a somersault before going out. "What's a somersault?" "Not bad, Lila," said Lochlann. "What are you going to call it?" "Tumbling dragons," she said. "Excellent. Make a dozen and we'll put them into the New Year festival display." The tumbling demons were a great success, and so were the shimmering coins that Lila invented next. As time went on, she learned more and more of her father's art, until one day she said, "Am I a proper firework maker now?" "No, no," he said, "by no means. Ha! You don't know the start of it. What are the ingredients of a flyaway powder?" "I don't know." "And where do you find thunder grains?" "I've never heard of thunder grains." "How much scorpion oil do you put in a Krakatoa fountain?" "A teaspoon." "What? You'd blow the whole city up. You've got a lot to learn yet. Do you really want to be a firework maker, Lila?" "Of course I do. It's the only thing I want." "I was afraid so," he said. "It's my own fault. What was I thinking of? I should have sent you to my sister's Jembavati to bring you up as a dancer. There is no place for a girl now, I come to think of it. And just look at you. Your hair is a mess, your fingers are burnt and stained with chemicals, your eyebrows are scorched. How am I going to find a husband for you when you look like that?" Lila was horrified. "A husband? Well, of course. You don't imagine you can stay here forever, do you?" They looked at each other as if they were strangers. Each of them had quite the wrong idea about things, and they were both alarmed to find it out. So Lila said no more about it, being a firework maker, and Lal Khan said no more about husbands, but they both thought about them all the same. Now, the king of that country owned a white elephant. It was the custom that whenever the king wanted to punish one of his courtiers, he would send him the white elephant as a present, and the expense of looking after the animal would ruin the poor man, because the white elephant had to sleep between silk sheets, enormous ones, and eat mango-flavoured Turkish delight, tons of it, and have his tusks covered in gold leaf every morning. When the courtier had no money left at all, the white elephant would be returned to the king, ready for his next victim. Wherever the white elephant went, his personal servant had to go too. The servant's name was Chulak, and he was the same age as Lila. In fact, they were friends. Every afternoon, Chulak would take the white elephant out for his exercise, because the elephant would go with no one else, and there was a reason for this. Chulak was the only person besides Lila who knew that the elephant could talk. One day Lila went to visit Chulak and the white elephant. She arrived at the elephant house in time to hear the elephant master losing his temper. "You horrible little boy," he roared. "You've done it again, haven't you?" "Done what?" said Chulak innocently. "Look," said the elephant master, pointing with a quivering finger at the white elephant's snowy flanks. "Written all over his side in charcoal, and paint were dozens of slogans. Eat at the Golden Lantern, Bangkok Wonders, for the Cup Star of India Tandoori House, and right at the very top of the white elephant's back, in great big letters, Chang loves Lotus Blossom True. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Every day this elephant comes home with graffiti all over him," shouted the elephant master. "Why don't you stop people doing it?" "I can't understand how it happens, master," said Chulak. "Mind you, the traffic's awful. I've got to watch those rickshaw drivers like a hawk. I can't look out for graffiti artists as well. They just slap it up and run. But Chang loves Lotus Blossom True. Must have taken a good 10 minutes on a stepladder." "Yeah, it's a mystery to me, master. Shall I clean it off?" "All of it. There's a job coming up in a day or two, and I want this animal clean." And the elephant master stormed off, leaving Chulak and Lila with the elephant. "Hello, Hamlet," said Lila. Hello, Lila, said the elephant. Look what this obnoxious brat has reduced me to, a walking billboard. Stop fussing, said Chulak. Look, we've got 18 rupees already and 10 annas from the tandoori house. And Chang gave me a whole rupee for letting him write that on the top. We're nearly there, Hamlet. The shame, said Hamlet, shaking his great head. You mean you charge people money to write on him, said Lila. Of course, said Chulak. It's dead lucky to write your name on a white elephant. When we've got enough, we're going to run away. Trouble is, he's in love with the lady elephant at the zoo. You ought to see him blush when we go past like a ton of strawberry ice cream. She's called Frangipani, said Hamlet mournfully, but she won't even look at me. And now there's another job coming up, another poor man to bankrupt. Oh, I hate Turkish delight. I detest silk sheets, and I loathe gold leaf on my tusks. I wish I was a normal, dull, grey elephant. No, you don't, said Chulak. We've got plans, Hamlet, remember? I'm teaching him to sing, Lila. We'll change his name to Luciano Elefanti, and the world will be our oyster. But why are you looking so sad, Lila, said Hamlet, as Chulak began to scrub him down. My father won't tell me the final secret of firework making, said Lila. I've learned all there is to know about fly-away powder and thunder grains and scorpion oil and spark repellent and glimmer joys and salts of shadow, but there's something else I need to know, and he won't tell me. Then I've nearly enough to get us to India, I thought. Nice trade, my foot, said Lalkland. I would like you to read the rest of the chapter yourself, and then that will be the end of our reading workshop lesson today. Okay? I need you to pause the video until you have finished reading that. Okay, so now that you've got your books back where you did all your notes about your given country, we're going to go back to this work now. Okay, so if you have a look at the picture on the screen, that is something that I would like you to do. Okay, and instead of sticking pictures on, which we may have done at school, you can draw different things. Okay, it's all to do with your chosen country. So that is what it's going to be like. So you need to get your book and you need to find a double page. Okay? Okay, so what I've done is I've shown you what I've done about my country. So my chosen country is Mexico. And I'm going to begin with my introduction about Mexico and think about all the different information that we needed to include in our introduction. What I've done is I've gone back to our second day of home learning, and those were the things that you needed to research. Now, if you didn't do this when you were supposed to, you've got extra work to do. Okay? So, in red, I've put in very basic, the very basic information that I got. Okay, and then from that I have done completed my introduction. So I want you to pause the video now, and I want you to write the date and the target. So the date, Monday the 25th of January 2021, and the target, I can write an information text about, and then you put your country name. Okay? So I've got a map of where Mexico is. So this is my introduction. The country of Mexico is in the southern part of the continent of North America. In the north, it is bordered by the that is supposed to say United States of America, and to the south, it is bordered by the Pacific Ocean. Bordered means it is next to, it is joined onto. Its capital city is Mexico City, and it is the most populated area in Mexico. It has over 127 million inhabitants, which means people, which makes Mexico the 10th most populated country in the world. In Mexico, the most common language is Spanish. However, there are over 68 other languages that are recognized. The Mexican peso is the currency used in the country. I'll read that again for you, okay? The country of Mexico is in the southern part of the continent of North America. In the north, it is bordered by the United States of America, and to the south, it is bordered by the Pacific Ocean. Its capital city is Mexico City, and it is the most populated area in Mexico. It has over 127 million inhabitants, which makes Mexico the 10th most populated country in the world. In Mexico, the most common language is Spanish. However, there are over 68 other languages that are often recognized. The Mexican peso is the currency used in the country. So there is my introduction. Okay? You need to find the double page in your books, and can you begin to write your introduction using the notes that you made? Then when you have completed the introduction, I would like you to choose one of the other headings and write your information up as we've done. Okay? So you might do a subheading of clothing and write that up. So now you need to pause the video, or actually you can just watch the rest of the video and then you can get on with your work. So thank you so much for all of your hard work again, Year 4. It has been so difficult to choose stars of the week. So each week I will do a star of the week for both my class and Mr. Smith's, for those children who have worked really hard. You can email me pictures of your work so you can keep an eye, or if you are stuck, I will be phoning you, or Mrs. Lee or Mrs. Bacon will be phoning your house on Wednesday, and you can ask us some questions there. Okay, so my email address, just to remind you, is paula.platten, and remember my surname is Platten at schools.sunderland.gov.uk. And if you can't remember that, you can go back to the one of the first videos that I did. It is on there. So have a good try at your work. Who will be the star of the week? That is on our Facebook page on Friday. Thank you, Year 4. Bye.